Welcome to Pen Tool Photoshop. In this tutorial, I'll be using the pen tool to cut around this car. I'll convert the path into a selection and then create a transparent background by using a layer mask. I'll also be tinting this window so it's not completely transparent, so we'll have a ghosting type effect, and I'll also retain this sort of blurred edge. So I'll go through now and cut out the car, and I'll explain as I go aspects of why I do certain things and the way I'm pathing. So you can see I'm using the pathing formula by placing a point on a curve and then balancing the distance between this point, this circle, and the line that I'm cutting out. So there's the apex of the arc, drag the control handles out, and the distance here is the same as that distance there. I never ever break these control handles like that because you'll end up with sharp points all the way around the image. So a bad habit that people do sometimes is they're not used to how this works, and they go, okay, that works okay, and this comes in. So they use the Alt key to break that handle, and in the right direction again. Or they come back, hit Alt on that, and then keep going. It's just amateur, basically. Don't do that. Essentially, it's not. It's slow and it's inaccurate. So once you learn the correct technique, you won't need to work like that. So also clients, if you're working on high-end stuff, some clients will pick up on that. So you can see here I'm coming in on the edge a little bit. See how the white bleeds in. So I want to put my path where the color is most solid. I don't want to put the point out here because you have some white bleeding in. I'll have a white halo around the image. So it's just the way it's been photographed. It hasn't. Sometimes the light bleeds around the image. You would need field cards, things like that, to stop that bleeding. But this is quite a small macro sort of shot of a toy car. So you can see my path is right in where it's solid, where the feather stops. That's where I want the path. That's the advantage of using the pen tool as opposed to trying to use a wand. You can wand this. It's on a really nice white background. These little bumps and things, you might not want that. This is a pretty good example of where you might want a really nice sharp sort of shape. So you can see once again I put my anchor up here, right at the top of the position of the screen, so the anchor's right at the top, and I've got all this area here to work towards. So I'm using the Alt key option to change the direction. So I get to this point here, change direction option, click. So I didn't want to put a point here because it won't be the correct shape. Well, it was the correct shape, but it's a bit of a stretch. See, you've got to mess around with it. It's quicker just to put more points down and not think about it. So don't try to think, might be able to get that in one go. It's a waste of time. Because by the time you think about trying to place it in the right spot, you may as well just put 2 points down in the right spot and moved on, rather than trying to get it in one go. So like here, I could have got rid of these 2 points and just put 1 point all the way down here. But how do I know if I'm going to come across some detail? So I just keep putting points down and don't try to put less points. A lot of people say less points is better. It's a completely useless statement, to be honest. Doesn't serve any purpose. Just put as many points down as you need. So you can see I'm never going back fixing. I don't need to go back and fix these anchors. I won't go back on this. Once I finish it, it's finished. Sometimes it's helpful to zoom back when you get these little bits of detail, so these little bumps. That's part of the charm of this car, so you want to retain that sort of detail. You don't want to brush over it. So you can see the number plate pops out a little bit, so I've put a point there to emphasize that. This is premium level sort of working. This is not just some small thing you want to do for the internet. You can always get back to this level. You can always go quicker and nastier, but it's harder to get premium detail. That's why I'm showing you the correct way. It's up to your discretion whether you need to apply this precision or whether you can take it a bit quicker. Okay, so that's the first path. It's the outside area. I double click on the path and save it as a path. Probably should have done that in the beginning. Better habit to save that in the beginning. Now I want to cut out the window. So it has to be on a separate path. So that's the first path there. And now I'll path around the window. I'll need a path for the feathered area. And this area here is sharp. See how that's a sharp area? So what I'll do is have a path for the feathered area. So once again, I'm cutting out sort of halfway between the feather. And I'm not worried about up here. So I just want a path for the feathered area. All right. Don't call that window. And then what I want is another path for this sharp area here. You can see pretty much every point I put down, I drag the control handles out. I think they're the only points that I haven't dragged them out. So this is the shape for the sharp area. Okay, so I have my paths I'll be using to apply to the layer mask. Hold down the command, click on path 1. So I've already set up in here where it says make selection. I've already set up my feather radius of 0.5. So you just go in and hit OK, and that's what makes the selection that setting. But from now on, I can just hold down Command, click on Path, and it makes it a selection. So everything to do with the selection is under the Select menu. And I can go down to Modify Feather. In this case, it's a hard object, so I'm happy with just a 0.5 feather. So once I've got this selection, when I click on this button, Add a Mask, it'll apply this selection as a mask. So what masks are, is whatever's black, you can see the icon here, is transparent. Whatever is white is what reveals the image. So if I hold down the Option key or Alt and click on the mask, you can see the mask. Also down here in the Channels palette, I can click on the icon and it'll show you visually what the mask looks like. So if I was to press B for the brush, so I've got a brush, and I put black in the foreground, and I start brushing, you can see it removes the color. So see here, it brushed into the image. If I put white in the foreground and brush, I'm revealing the image again. If I want to disable the mask, hold down the Shift key and click on it. If you save this file as a TIFF, it would still be there, it just wouldn't be active. You wouldn't have any background transparency. So the reason I show you that is because I want this window to be tinted. So before I do that, I'll add in a tint. Just a blue. Okay, so you can see it's on a blue background. Command, click on that path. So what I'm trying to gauge here is the kind of feather that I need. So I can go Select, Modify Feather. So I'd say maybe 5 pixels. It's just a guess really. Press Q and see how that looks. Okay, so instead of adding a mask, so now I want to put a tint in there. So what I can do is put black in the foreground, go into Edit, Fill. So I want to change this to the foreground color. And I want it set it as a tint. So I don't want 100% black, because remember 100% black was 100% transparent. So this is a bit of guesswork as to what tint you would want, but I can make that maybe 50% transparency. So that's up to your discretion, what tint you would like. So Command D will deselect, and I've got that feather. So it obviously goes out too far here, but that's why I've made that other path. So now when I Command click on that path, I can leave it as 0.5. It's quite a hard edge. So I want to switch the colors. So I want to make sure white is in the foreground, because white is the inside of the car. White, it won't reveal the image. I want to remove this. So it's currently gray. So I want white in the foreground. So I press Shift F5, it'll bring up the fill option rather than going into the menu. I have 100% white with the foreground color. Hit OK. Command D and deselect. You can see the path wasn't good enough. So in this case, select these points, always move them. You can see how precise it has to actually be. This is quite a faint feather. So I'll bring up the feather option. So that was Shift F6. I might feather that 2 pixels. Looks like there's a slight feather on there. Fill again, foreground color. And deselect that. So you can see it has got a bit of a feather. You'd have to go back and forward until you got that edge right. You can see there it's a soft edge, and here's a slightly harder edge. But the window is tinted. You can see it's a solid blue, and it's got a slight fade on it. So now you would save this file as either a TIFF or a PNG file, or even a GIF, and you would have a transparent background, and this window would be slightly tinted. So that was the process of making a path, converting that path into a selection, applying that as a layer mask, and then having separate paths for the windows. So the outside area is completely black, and inside the window was a tint of black, and that's what gives it a tinted transparency. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.